Hi guys, I'm Gasha, welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. As always, we're here to talk horror and books, and since Valentine's Day is coming around the corner, I thought why not talk about some horror books that have also some romance.
It's coffee time.
So I particularly do not celebrate Valentine's, but I know that for some people it's a very special day. I know some people really like to go all out and celebrate, and I also am not always particularly someone that loves romance in her horror. However, there are some books that are nice and include some love stories. One of them being, of course, Dracula by Bram Stoker. It's a beautiful love story. I've always loved it. So I thought I would put a small list of books that have horror and some romance in them. So maybe it's something in here that you haven't heard of that you might want to pick up. The reason why I'm doing this list, and even though I have not read all the books that I'm going to mention, is because in this channel I want to give you guys also some other type of books, some other options and things that you might enjoy, because just because I don't always read horror combined with love doesn't mean you guys don't like it, right? So I just wanted to provide you with some options in case that you're looking for that extra book to read in February that has some romance. Let's start with a book. It's a YA book that also has a movie. In this case, I've watched the movie, but I have not read the book. I'm talking about Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion, and this one I believe is also a book series, so there's more than one book. And here we follow R and his adventures as a zombie. He's dead, but he's not like your typical, zombie. He is a little bit more in touch with his emotions. Instead of just eating people, he likes to use escalators in our airport. He likes to listen to music. And one day he encounters this girl and he's a little bit confused because for some reason he doesn't want to eat her, and he develops feelings for her. What I've heard about this book is that it can get really weird and really strange, but on the positive side, this is a book that it is bringing you a zombie story a little bit different than your typical, zombie apocalypse story. And we have here some romance, which is part of the main story, and I really found myself enjoying the movie, and I've always wanted to pick up the books, but I still haven't. I've also heard that it has really good character development, and even though it might not be for everybody, it's one that I really want to try to read because they also say it's kind of gruesome, so I'm all for things that are a little bit gross. There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This is a YA book that I've talked about recently since I read it last year, and this kind of reads a little bit more like YA contemporary than horror, but it is supposed to be kind of a slasher, especially the movie, which there's also a movie. It is a lot more slasher horror. The book has a little bit more of emphasis on the love relationship between our main characters, so that's why it's on this list, because you get some kills, you get some spookiness, but you also get a love story. Makani moves from Hawaii to Nebraska to live with her grandmother to kind of have a fresh start after some things that happened in her past that she wants to leave behind. And she's a newbie at school and she's starting to adapt, she's starting to make friends, and just when things are perfect for her, she meets a boy, everything's good, then all her friends start to die one by one. Like, what the heck, world? Like, it's just, you can never get a fresh new start in horror books. Always something goes wrong. So Makani now has to kind of figure out who's killing her friends if she wants to survive. But like I said, this has a lot of emphasis on the romantic relationship between Makani and her love interest. And I really did enjoy to see that in the book because it really gets a lot more character depth than the movie. The movie just kind of brushes a little bit over it. So if you're looking for a romantic story with some slashers happening, also kind of parallel to it, then this might be for you. The Safety of Unknown Cities by Lucy Taylor, and this is horror erotica, so please keep that in mind if you want to read this one, because it's a lot more intense when it comes to the gore and the sex and all of that than any other book. So just putting it out there, because you need to know your own boundaries and things that you're comfortable reading. So anyways, this was a debut novel that won the Bram Stoker Award, and unfortunately it's not really talked much about, but you can think of this as something like Clive Barker would have written at the beginning of his career. Val has had a very tough life, so she's always looking for a thrill, looking for something that is going to excite her, that it's going to kind of fill the void that she has inside of her. And she knows about, oh, she discovers about this place called City, where you're supposed to get all the pleasures but also all the nightmares. So this is where, you know, I immediately have to think of the Cenobites. If you've known Hellraiser, you know what I'm talking about. And this is a book that gets really gory, really intense with body horror. It's an erotica book, so, you know, put two and two together. So definitely only check this one out if you're comfortable with it, because, you know, it might get a lot. It might be a lot, especially if you're not someone that is used to things like Hellraiser, stuff like that. Maybe, you know, just proceed with caution. The Wicked Deep by She Ensha, and this is a YA book that is a little bit more fantasy, kind of paranormal-ish book, more than full-on horror, because we follow witches in this story. Many years ago, 3 women were condemned in this small town by the sea. They said they were witches, and they basically decided to drown them, putting stones attached to their feet. And after that, these 3 sisters made kind of like a curse on this small town, saying that they would come back every X summers and they would take some boys from the town and drown them as a payback for what was done to them. So I absolutely love that story. It kind of reminded me, obviously, to Hocus Pocus, you know, this kind of torturing witches and then the witches putting a curse on the town. And I just absolutely love the atmosphere that this book had. We are in a small island, so there is water involved, and it is very atmospheric, but we also have a small kind of love story going on. My only issue with this book was that the parents are almost non-existent. You know, those YA books where you kind of wonder why these teenagers are doing all of these things and are in all of this danger, and the parents are nowhere to be seen. They are never mentioned. And it's like, where are the adults? That's kind of something that happened in this book, but it didn't stop me from really enjoying the story. And their love relationship might be a little bit insta-lovey, so if you don't love insta-love stories, maybe also might not be for you. But I'm someone that it depends. Sometimes I find insta-love really annoying, and sometimes I'm okay with it. I think it depends on how it is presented and how the rest of the book is, if it's really truly focused on that love story or not. And in this case, you know, there's a lot of things happening with the witches and the legend, so it's not just about the love story, so I was kind of okay with it. The Window of Rose House by Deanna Biller, and this is a historical romantic fiction story, and this is one perfect for people that love kind of your typical gothic haunted house ghost story. We are in 1875 and our main character is called Alva, and she is a recent widow, and she was in a really abusive relationship, so she's actually happy that she's now a widow, and she decides to have a new start in life and decides to move to New York and buy and restore a decrepit looking mansion in Hyde Park, and that's what she does. However, she starts to hear people telling her about this mansion being haunted and to be careful, but she doesn't believe in ghosts, she doesn't believe on any of it. But then she realizes that it might actually be true, and she also meets this fancy boy called Sam, and he's kind of a scientist and he knows, you know, how to get rid of spirits and ghosts and things like that. So they kind of team up to find out why this house might be haunted and not and stuff, and that is where we get this dynamic and this relationship between them, which is something a lot of fun. This one might get steamy at times. It's an adult book, so, you know, again, proceed with caution, see if it's something for you or not. And here, more than just the ghost and the hunting story, we also have, you know, the cool dynamic between Sam and Alva. Alva is more like the dark character, and Sam is the one that brings a little bit more of light into the story. So if you like this kind of, you know, love relationships in the 1800s where you have 2 characters that are, you know, making some sort of hunting investigation, but they also fall in love, this might be exactly what you're looking for if you also love kind of this gothic fiction. A Terrible Beauty by Nancy Baker. This is paranormal horror, fantasy, and this is indeed a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. And this time the twist is that we have here vampires. So everything is fairly similar. You know, somebody is condemned to live in this palace, and then someone is forced, in order to rescue a loved one, to go to this palace, and then they meet. It's kind of like, you know, Beauty of the Beast, but in this case the beast is a vampire. This is a book that starts very slow paced, but then it starts to catch up at some point, and also the writing is really nice. It's really nicely written, and even though it might not be as horror as some people might expect it to be, being a vampire story, I still think that it's a nice read if you love vampires and paranormal and romance. And I know a lot of people out there love to read retelling, especially from things like Beauty and the Beast. It was also one of my favorite Disney movies, so I'm always kind of intrigued about retellings that, you know, are telling the story of Beauty and the Beast in a different perspective. And this time being vampires, you know, I love vampires as well. I feel like there is so much romance in vampires. There's something about vampires that makes you feel attracted to them. I don't know what it is. It might have been because of all the Hollywood movies portraying them as these, you know, sexy, immortal beings, perfect to the eye. It's kind of eye candy, let's be honest. That's what most vampire stories are like. I guess that's one of my favorite vampire stories tend to be stories where the vampires are not your typical perfect looking guy or girl. But yeah, let me know down below, what is your favorite romance that includes vampires? Dark House by Karina Hale, and this is new adult paranormal. Like I said, many paranormal ones have romance in them. Perry is able to see ghosts. Is something that she wishes she couldn't do. It's something that she has tried to put in her past, but it's something that she can do. And her life changes when she meets Dex. Dex is a producer that wants to make these webcasts based on ghost huntings, and she decides to join him. They don't even have like a real budget or anything like that, so it's a very kind of underground program. And this is something that really intrigued me about this book, because I love to see when horror is combined with more modern things like webcast programs, like podcasts, like you know, YouTube channels, things like that. I love when horror is a little bit more combined with modern technologies. So Perry decides that they are going to use her uncle's haunted lighthouse in order to film this program, in order to do it. And the book, I have to say, it does start really slow pace, so you gotta be a little bit patient with it. But luckily for us, it does end up picking up, and we do get some really cool action-packed scenes. And it's also a nice character exploration. So this is one that I think it's also a series. This is book one. So if you're interested, there's going to be more for you to read. This is going to be for you if you like the supernatural, some relatable characters. And this could be like a more young adult version, or a younger version of the X-Files kind of thing. I know that's a big name to throw in there, but just so you get an idea of what you can get from this book. And the last one, I wanted to pick up a horror anthology, and I wanted to be an anthology that represents women in a lot of different shapes and forms, and something that gives a lot of representation to different types of women. And I decided to go here with Stranger Girls, and it was edited by Athura Knox. I read this, I think, a couple years ago, and I really enjoyed it, and I love to see so many different stories based on so many different women. These are going to be stories about unconventional women, women that stand up from the crowd, that are very, very different. You're gonna have your vampire story, your mermaid story, and of course some of these stories do include some love interests. So I wanted to include it here because I haven't heard many people talking about it, and it's also a way to support women in horror. And if you have not checked it out, I think that you would really enjoy it. I think there's a total of 22 stories, so there is definitely something for everyone in here. I also really loved that in this compilation you get trigger warnings about the stories, and you also get kind of like an author's bio, so that you get an idea of who the author is for every single one of the stories, which is something that I love so much. And I wish that more of these horror anthologies would do that, because it's amazing to see a trigger warning before a short horror story. before you jump into it and it just, you know, slaps you in the face and you don't have time to prepare yourself. And also it's great at the end of the story to get a little author's bio to see if you'll be more interested in checking out more things about the author. I don't know, I thought it was amazing the way this book was edited as well, so that's what I wanted to recommend it here for you guys. Alright you guys, so these were my 8 recommendations for horror books combined with a little bit of romance. Let me know down below what you thought, if you have read any of these yourself, or if you have a recommendation for me. Is there any horror book that includes a romance story that you absolutely love? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope that maybe you found something in this list that you might be interested to pick up, maybe something that you spontaneously are gonna grab for Valentine's Day. If you do, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please give the video a big thumbs up, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!